Hello and welcome to the Buckets and Tea NBA show. I'm your host, Cathryn Naiker. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Joining me, you know him, you love him. It's Vivek Jacob. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I like that we had a little prequel to get right into this thing. And
Yes.
ready to go.
Sick. Yeah, we shared our new desk accessories, or at least I did, and just talked about the craziness of our lives. Per usual, it's been once again an eventful week in the NBA. We're gonna do NBA first and then Raptors, and yes, of course, we are going to talk about the pizza party, most definitely. But first, I want to talk a little bit with you about Team USA. So it is not, I don't think it actually is confirmed. I feel like there's speculation as to whether or not this roster is, in fact, 100% confirmed or not. Shams had a tweet earlier this week, and then other people started aggregating it. But I think it is more or less locked in at this point that this would be the starting five for Team USA. It would be Steph Curry, Jason Tatum, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and they have listed Joel Embiid, but it will be interesting to see if he's healthy or if he opts in to play in the Olympics this year. But that is a heck of a starting five. Past that, there's Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker, I believe Kawhi Leonard. I mean, that's that's insane. I mean, somehow it feels better than even an all-star team. Somehow, I'm not saying that's actually true, but it's quite stacked.
No, it's true.
What do you think of this year's Team USA?
Well, it's better than an all-star team because they will try for one.
Shots fired, but no, very valid shots fired.
I think they're going to be pretty determined. I think this is the thing that happens now, right? Where they name like a B squad and then they don't really get over the line at the World Championships, and then people start talking their smack, and then they'll show up at the Olympics with the full squad and be like, well, we're still the kings of this. And so I think that's where we're headed. I think they'll be ready. I think especially with some of the guys on their final Olympic chance.
Yes.
And Steph, like it's going to be his first and his last. And so I think there might actually be a bit of a 92 Dream Team vibe to this, where with 92 you had this was like the only chance to see MJ and Bird and Magic together, and now I think you're gonna get a bit of
Barkley,
and now you're gonna get LeBron and Kawhi and Durant and Steph all together, and it's like, okay,
yeah, I agree. It does feel like a culmination of a generational moment. It feels very millennial and weirdly existential at the same time. Just knowing like this is absolutely like their last Olympics for a lot of these guys. And I agree. I think this has one of those very special Team USA feelings to it. I mean, you started to see it kind of last summer brewing when LeBron was like, come on, like we got to do this, and was recruiting Steph, kept talking about how much he wants to play with Steph. I don't think there was a ton of legitimacy with those trade rumors that happened a few weeks ago. I think that was PR stuff, but and we talked about that on this pod, my conspiracy theories around that. But I think this is an opportunity for them to play together, and I think it's gonna be really special. I agree. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is because Team Canada obviously has a special team, and if they're filming a documentary around this Team USA, which I imagine with LeBron he would, Dillon Brooks is just the most perfect foe. You know what I mean? Because he is going to, like, in this one moment, because I don't know that much about Dillon Brooks outside of basketball. Thank God he's Canadian. Thank God he's Canadian, because I just feel like he will do everything he can to annoy every single person on that team, and I can't wait. It's going to be so fun. Like, even if Team Canada, I'm not suggesting I think this will happen, but even if Team Canada loses by more than 20 points, he is going to make it fun. You know what I mean? And also, I think
Yeah.
we're obviously going to be very competitive against the rest of the world. We did win bronze in FIBA, and I think Team Canada could easily, well, I shouldn't say easily, but very solid chance of medaling in this Olympics. Do you think Team Canada would have like a decent shot at this Team USA, or it's 1992 all over again, we're just playing for silver bronze kind of situation?
I think the only way there could be a potential problem is, you have like this mix of the young guys and the old guys for Team USA, and maybe you get a couple of the young guys trying to be like, oh, well, this is my team, and the old guys are
Mm.
kind of like, hey, this is our last chance. We're trying to do our thing. But maybe they just lay back, and we saw that a little bit, in '92 when Bird and Magic, they weren't playing much, right? And they were just kind of like, let these guys do their thing. We'll show up when we need to.
Mm.
And then when it really came down to it, and then MJ was going off and he was making his mark. And so I think it could be a similar situation, but I think chemistry is the only thing that could get in the way of this USA team. Like if Joel Embiid shows up and is like, I want the ball every possession, I want to show that I'm the best player. I think that's where you could maybe poke some holes at them,
Yeah.
right? And if you're Team Canada, absolutely, you should be the second or third best team in the mix. I think Serbia was missing quite a few guys in that World Cup, and
Mhm.
so I mean they were missing Jokic for crying out loud, and they still got the silver. So
Yeah, I was gonna say they looked really good
yeah, so
even
I
without
think
him,
they're going to
yeah.
be forced to reckon with. And again, if you're going up against a USA team that potentially has Embiid, then you want to have a guy like Jokic. If they don't have Embiid, they're kind of thin at the big position. And so Jokic becomes a huge advantage. And that's something that Canada doesn't really have, like a great big man, right?
That's
Uh,
true. I mean,
for
shout out to
all the
Kelly
guard
Olynyk,
play.
but,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Much respect to Kelly and Dwight. Um,
Yeah.
but that's probably a position that you're looking at taking a bit of a beating, and so you need Jamal Murray to be there. I don't know what his status is going to be, if the Nuggets
Mhm.
go deep again. So I think you absolutely need Shea and Jamal in the backcourt, right? And then we'll see what happens with Andrew Wiggins. Obviously, he's at a down season.
Mhm.
So maybe you just feel like, that situation is not going to work out. But yeah, you absolutely need your best guys there. And then I think you need some chemistry stuff to go wrong with Team USA. And then maybe, you can sneak one against them.
Who do you think, like, just for fun, just for fun, who do you think LeBron gets into an internal argument with?
An internal argument.
Yeah, like, is it him and Anthony Edwards butting heads? Is it him and Joel? I actually think Anthony
I'm going
Davis
to
might
go.
end up being on this team. I have a feeling Joel Embiid
Yeah.
might not do it.
Yeah. I could definitely see Anthony Davis on there. let's let's say Joel Embiid does end up going, and he is kind of like, hey, I'm not getting the ball enough and all of that, and I would love to see LeBron just like retweet, when Kevin Love was on the Cavs and he did the whole like fit in or fit out.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
agree. I think our top guys will have a hell of a showing in the Olympics, but I think this team is gonna be, yeah, like you said, pretty much impossible. Like, it would have to be one of those, like, they beat themselves type of situations, but as a pure basketball fan, super excited to see all these guys on the same team. I think
Oh
it's gonna
yeah.
be really, really special. Okay, speaking of LeBron, he's been in the news again this week, but specifically about his son Bronny. So, there's been a lot of talk about Bronny making the leap into the NBA. He plays at USC right now. He is not, declared for the draft yet. I think he averages like 5 or 6 points a game. He's like kind of like a solid college player, but I don't know to what degree people would consider him an NBA prospect yet. Um, somebody, I don't even know who, somebody did a mock draft. I don't think it takes a lot to get LeBron's attention, to be honest. And they're talking about Bronny in the mock draft, and LeBron was just like, "Hey, like, let this kid be a kid." And I think that's really interesting for a few reasons that I'll get into in a minute. But I'll just also add that, like, stupid Stephen A just like went in on LeBron and was like, "This is your fault. You're the one who told everybody that you want to play with your son," and blah blah blah, and like, I don't know. Like, I think there's some truth to that, but it's also like, what the hell? Like, you're making, once again making something out of nothing. But I I think, his the way I kind of look at this situation, Vivek, is like, I feel like, like, parents have a dream for you. Like parents just always have dreams for their kids. And sometimes you grow into those dreams for them and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And I feel like with Bronny, especially after he had that heart attack in the summer, like, he suffered cardiac arrest in the summer and it was super scary. I mean, he's only 18, right? Or 19. And like, maybe being in the NBA isn't in the cards for this guy. Like, I could see him maybe having a roster spot like a Thanasis, with the Bucks, but I don't know if he's going to be like a legitimate contributing NBA player. And maybe I think LeBron is kind of seeing that writing on the wall a bit more. So I think that's kind of why he's like, I'm just going to protect my kid and take a step back from this. Like, I don't, he's not going to leave the Lakers. I don't see that happening at all. Um, and I do kind of feel bad for Bronny, even though he obviously has a very charmed life. I just feel like playing basketball and having those expectations must be very daunting. I've said a lot. I've said a lot. Please go ahead.
No, I agree with you. The expectations are just through the roof, and it's like impossible to live up to. And I think, you go back to another GOAT, Michael Jordan, and the
Mm,
way his kids were followed and the expectations that came with that. They didn't, pan out to be NBA players. And so I think, uh, we might be headed down a similar path here. And, you know, I'm sure Bronny is going to set himself up for success in other avenues if it's not basketball, and if it's basketball, maybe he does need to take an extra year of college or whatever it may be, to get himself in a better position to make the NBA. And so, yeah, and I don't think he should be judged for it, right? Like, I
yeah.
think when you look at other players who don't come in with that same pressure, you look at Del Curry, for example, wasn't an all-time great, had a very respectable NBA career. But when
Mhm.
Steph comes in, it's not like, people are saying, "Oh, is he going to be, is he going to live up to what Dell did? Is he going to do this? Is he going to do that?" And then he ends up being the greatest shooter of all time.
Yeah,
You
like
know?
like S like Seth Curry has the more Del Curry-like career.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
uh, I think the pressure is just immense. Um, and again, I absolutely agree with, like, let the kid be a kid. Um, I also get that at the same time, it's just part of the package of being LeBron, right? Like, at the
Yeah.
same time, every year there are a lot of other kids who are getting dropped out of the draft. You know,
Mm.
it's just this is going to have so much more attention because it's LeBron James' son.
I think I completely agree. I think, Bronny, because it's not like he needs the money. You know what I mean? He's not in a position where, like, he's trying to create generational wealth for his family, right? Like, he has it. He could literally just stay in university, graduate, right? And then become some, like, tech douchebag You know what I mean? And become a billionaire by the time he's like 30 because he's Bronny, and of course people would want to associate whatever they're creating and their brands with him. Like to me, there's such an easy path for his life that has nothing to do with basketball. Like, I think, like, being an athlete is a very glamorous life, but it's also a very difficult life. Like, it's hard to be
Hmm.
an athlete. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like, if you don't have to do that to yourself, why would you? Like,
Right.
to me,
Yeah.
I'm just like, be the Gen Z tech douchebag you're destined to be.
Unless you really, really love basketball,
Unless
right?
you really, really love basketball. It's possible that he is just passionate about the game. That is possible, but, you know, that would
Yeah.
be unfortunate for him.
Yeah. No, that's the thing, right? At some point, it's like, yeah, you're getting to chase this dream if it's your dream, and take your best crack at it. But at the same time, there's a lot of other people chasing this dream, and if they happen to be better than you, um, at what may or may not be your passion, then you might have to just look elsewhere.
Imagine the hourglass emoji tweet was about Bronny's career.
Catherine, why'd you take it there?
I'm sorry, I just thought of
That is hilarious. That is also
it.
called
I'm
extremely,
obviously
extremely funny.
joking, okay, everybody? I'm obviously joking.
Oh man,
Oh god.
that's
Okay,
fantastic.
we should thank you. We should move on. Okay, so there's been more referee drama in the NBA this week, particularly with the Knicks and Detroit. Detroit lost a game after a really bad no call that happened at the end of the game, and then Coach Monty Williams went on, another epic rant. We've had several epic coaching rants this year. Obviously, we had Darko's. We also had Mike Brown's rant where he like got out the iPad and he was like actually showing the
Yeah,
media like
yeah.
what he was talking about and what was egregious and why. And now we have Monty Williams saying this was the worst call/no call of the season, that this was egregious. He essentially walked out of his press conference after the fact and didn't take any other additional questions. I guess like it's really hard for Detroit because they've only won, I think it's like 8 games this season, which is rough, man. That's rough. Like even in like the dog days of like Raptors seasons, like we had more than 8 games. Like I haven't as a homer lived through something that low. But like like when a game is close and you lose, like I can only imagine how frustrating that is for them. And then like the league immediately after kind of admitting like, yeah, this was a bad no call and stuff. And it just seems like there's sort of this trend. Maybe it's not a trend. I know this happens every year, but there's certainly a trend between animosity with the coaches, but also this year with the refs kind of losing their tempers and throwing people out what would say is kind of quickly. So I feel like there's this building tension on both sides, and that's something that I've been saying throughout the season. So my question for you, Vivek, is like, what do you make of this situation? And do you think the NBA should be adjusting any rules around reviews and end of games and things like that?
Well, first thing, seeing the increase of coaching rants, the first thing that comes to mind is, it's kind of like a whole tell me coaches are making more money without telling me coaches are making more money. It's like, I'll take this fine.
Facts.
Monty Williams is making what, $13 million this year? And he's saying, I don't care about these
He
fines anymore.
has the most egregious contract. Isn't
Yeah,
it like
and
80 million over 5 years or something like crazy?
something like that. I mean, I think
I'm
Eric
sorry, I
Spoelstra is
don't
now
have
the
that.
highest paid coach after his recent extension.
That's right, but
Um,
Steve Kerr only signed for 2 years.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
So Steve Kerr might be the highest on a per year basis,
That's right.
and then and so I think now the coaches are getting into that category, and it's part of why the players go at the refs the way they do. I don't think it was a coincidence that after Fred got the bag, he was able to go at Ben Taylor the way he did. And so I think that has something to do with it in terms of how vociferous they are with expressing their frustrations. And so I do think there is an issue. I do think these games are kind of reaching a tipping point where Adam Silver and whoever else is going to have to get together at the end of the season and say, what can we put in place to avoid these kind of egregious mistakes, right? Like I don't think there's any way you can combat, say, what happened between the Lakers and the Raptors, where it's just a continuous game flow where one team is getting the calls and the other isn't.
Right.
But I think in these late game situations, I don't know if there's just a way to contest that, saying, whether or not you have a challenge, there has to be some type of ruling, and where the replay center is able to just step in, right? Like regardless of who is challenging, who is not, just saying, hey, like this absolutely can't, like this is too much of a missed call to ignore.
I agree. I think two things should happen. One, I think in the final 2 minutes of a game, I think you should be able to review something regardless of what was originally called. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I think especially for, like, a casual fan, this whole idea of, like, you can review this, but you can't review that because what was originally called was XYZ. I feel like that gets confusing and very muddled. I think if you're gonna review it, especially in the final 2 minutes of a game. Now, I don't want, everything to be reviewed and blah, 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 but it's just like, if you're gonna do it, do it.
Yeah.
The other thing I think should change is I think teams should have like the coaches challenge. Every team should just have 2 coaches challenges each, and that's it. I don't think it should be like if you lost your challenge, you don't get it back, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like just have 2. If you lose both, you lose both. Cuz I think
Right.
that way teams can use one during the first 3 quarters of a game, whether it's, a star player in foul trouble or you feel a momentum shifting or something like that. And then you have one at the end of the game, if it's close, for a moment like this. I think
Yeah.
that to me is the fairest way to do it. Like, I don't think like teams should be punished because they wanted to challenge something and it didn't go their way. Like, I think that's kind of silly. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, what's this punishment for?
Right. And so they did modify the rules slightly this year, saying that, hey, if you get your first challenge right,
Yeah.
you get one more challenge.
Yeah.
But if you get your first challenge wrong, then you're done. And I think that punishes teams because it's like, hey, unless it's an absolutely egregious, like no brainer that will be overturned, we're not going to use this because we probably gonna lose it for the rest of the game, right? And so I think there has to be that opportunity to just say, hey, maybe it's you do it by half, right?
Oh,
Where
one in the first half, one in the second half?
yeah, and so and you say like, hey, you have it ended up, and that same rule applies to each half, where it's like, hey, you have one for the first half. If you get it right the first time, you still have another for the remainder of the half.
Right.
And
Well,
then in
then
the
you could
second
end up
half,
having, like, 4 coaches challenges a game.
no. So it resets at the start of the second half. So
Okay.
again, you go into the second half saying, "Hey, you've got a challenge again, and if you get it right, you've got one more to use."
Right. Okay.
So technically, you could have as many as 4 in the whole game and 2 in each half.
Right. But would that I wonder if that slows down the game too much. But I think
Yeah,
regardless, like but I do like the idea of spacing it out. Like, I think I just feel like in this modern era where, especially we as fans have instant replay, obviously. I mean, we've had that on TV for a long time, but you know what I mean? Like, it's on Twitter and blah, blah, blah. you know, and then in the stadium, and then the refs having access to it. It just doesn't make sense to me to have so many egregious end of game calls.
Right.
You know, so I just feel like there does need to be some amendments there, and then hopefully that will like relieve some of the animosity, because the animosity isn't good for the game. You know what I mean? Like basketball needs referees, basketball needs nuance, right? Like it just does.
I think a big thing that would also just take away from the general frustration is calling the game the same in the regular season as you would in the postseason. I think some of the frustration is also because like some people know how the game is called in the postseason, and then there's like this adjustment that has to happen in the regular season because it's not called the same way. And it's
Right.
like
So it's more
they're trying to,
physical in the playoffs, essentially.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so it's like, hey, can you just and hey, guess what? That would actually help speed up the game, because if you allow more physicality, you're not you're not blowing the whistle every 10 seconds, you know? And that's one thing that happens in the regular season, where it's like dudes are going to the line all the time, and you're seeing teams get to the line, you know, 40, 50 times a game. And that slows down the game, right? And maybe if you just let them play a little bit more in the regular season, everyone would be okay with it.
Yeah, I think so. I think they probably all want to play more physically. That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
But, you know,
like
that's for them to say. Who am I to say they should play more physically or not?
Like playoff games
yeah.
end up taking more time just because of like advertising and TV timeouts and all of that, right? And okay, sure, like, you know, you are, you know, walking the ball up a bit more and you're playing in the half court a bit more. But I think there is a path to the regular season just being a bit more physical, and you're letting players play through stuff a bit more, and that actually speeding up the game a bit more.
Yeah. I'm curious to see if this summer we'll get some amendments or not. I think we will. Let's talk a little bit about the 65 game rule. So Vivek recently wrote a piece about this for Sportsnet. You can definitely check that out. Where players have to play a minimum of 65 games in order to qualify for end of season awards, MVP, etc., etc. Vivek, how do you think this is affecting the league this season?
So I do think that on the whole, there's probably been mixed results. I think obviously there will be frustration when you look at a guy like Joel Embiid and say, okay, you know, his numbers are absolutely ridiculous, and maybe if the 65 game rule wasn't there, he might not have, you know, forced himself to play in certain games. Maybe he doesn't get as hurt, and he ends up playing like 60 games, and because of the numbers he's putting up, you know, he should at least be in the conversation. I think the thing that maybe is getting lost is the fact that before this rule, voters still discounted people for not playing enough games, right? It just wasn't like set in stone. Like if you played 50 games and someone was playing at a similar level but played 70 games, voters would give the guy who played 70 games an edge. Like this has happened before with Joel Embiid. I think where I come down on it is, as long as the NBA has back-to-backs, I think it's a bit unfair to set it as high as it is right now. On average, there are 13 back-to-backs that a team plays in a season. And reasonably, like, there's enough data to show that the product isn't as good. Teams don't play as well. Player performance declines playing with zero rest. And so I don't think there should be the expectation that they should be playing those games. And so I think for me, if the NBA wants to set out this mandate of playing 80% of the games, then just get rid of back-to-backs. Reduce the season to like 72 games. And then if you want to say you got to play like 58 out of the 72 or 70 games, then I'd say, okay, yeah, that's fine. Because you've taken back-to-backs out of the equation.
Or like make preseason shorter and like start the regular season earlier. because
Yeah,
they're still together and on the road for that same amount of time, right? Like, you're not adding more time to, like, their travel and their workouts or something. You're just, like, shifting it a bit. Because I mean, I don't know, like, to me, preseason is it 2 weeks?
yeah, but I mean, the crazy part is there was a time where it used to be even longer.
Yes, it used to be even
And
longer. Yeah,
yeah,
I've forgotten how long it is now. It's 2 to 3 weeks, I think.
yeah, they play about 5 games.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. I don't know how valuable preseason is for people. Like, I haven't heard people talk about that as, like, we really needed that time.
Yeah,
I
like,
feel
I
like
mean, you
people
could
are always figuring things out during the season. Am I
yeah,
crazy for
like,
that?
if anything, you could probably bring it down to, like, 3 games and get it done, like, in a week, week and a half,
Right.
and then get
And
right
then that
into it.
just gives you more time.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I agree with you. I absolutely think that, like, I mean, when I first heard about the 65 rule, I wasn't, like, against it, but I thought, "Okay, this will be interesting."
yeah,
Right? But I completely agree with you about the back-to-backs, and you're right, like, voters did count missed games towards these awards. That's why Kawhi hasn't won a regular season MVP,
yeah.
right? Because he just never played enough games, and, like, that was always kind of understood, and I've never once heard him, like, complain about that. Not that he talks a lot, but you know what I mean? So, yeah, and, like, I
Did you
have
see what happened with him recently, where he was asked about all the games he's played this season and
yes.
how he's been able to be so healthy?
Yeah, but yeah, they were like, "How have you been able to play so many games this year?" And he's like, "I don't have a torn ACL or a torn meniscus." Basically, like, what the hell? What do you mean, why have I been able to play so much? It's weird, it's like people don't believe he's been injured. I don't know
Yeah.
why that is.
And so that's the thing is, like, because of the rule now, the fact that it came in this year, people are assuming that, oh, Kawhi is playing in so many games now because there's this rule. And
Mhm.
it's like, guess what? If the rule was there last year, if the rule was there a year before, that was not going to change how many games he played last year or the year before, because of what he was dealing with.
Yeah, I do have, some opposition against, um I noticed last year, like, players were just being rested
Yeah.
preventatively and weren't injured. Like, I remember last year, the Warriors, they rested a bunch of their star guys when they were in Cleveland. And
Hmm.
for the fans, they're like, "Well, this is our one chance a
Right.
year to see this team, to see the Warriors that, like, cost more money." Right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're spending a lot of money in these tickets, and then you're just sitting these guys day of and whatever, and Steve Kerr was basically like, "That's not part of my job, like, it's my job to, like, keep these guys healthy and play and blah, blah, blah." So I think, like, that I don't think is cool, you
I agree
know?
with that. Yeah.
But I
But
do
again, I would put that back to back-to-backs, right? And where
right.
where all these teams are now, like, forced to be like, "Oh, okay, do you play this end of the back-to-back? Do you play the other end of the back-to-back?" And then that's how there's, like, this trickle-down effect when you have, like, the 3 games in 4 nights or whatever it may be.
Mhm, especially as you get into your 30s, like, like, is Steph 36 now?
Um,
He's something around that, like, he's older than you think.
35. He will be
Thir
36 on March 14th.
like, damn, right?
Still
Like,
got
that's
that baby face.
he does, he still has the face, he absolutely does. Even
Like,
the beard isn't fooling anybody.
how annoying is it for defenders to have to, chase this guy around nonstop, like literally running around like a kid, looking like a kid,
Mm,
and just completely owning you on the basketball court
mhm,
all the time?
mhm. I agree. I think, like, one thing that's kinda underrated about Steph Curry, if that's possible, is his speed. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
obviously his shooting, he's the greatest shooter ever, but, like, his speed is really what makes the difference for him. The amount that he cuts, like, even if you guard him well enough that he, like, gives up the ball, he's constantly running and cutting and switching screens. It's, like, so exhausting to keep up with him. That's
his
why he
endurance,
gets
his stamina.
yeah, like, that's why he gets so many shots up. I just feel like that part of his game, like, isn't talked about enough. Like, his speed is incredible. But anyway, all right, let's move on and talk about the Raptors. The Raptors, obviously, we won 3 games in a row. We got our pizza party, but because of this 3-game winning streak, even though we did lose against Dallas, a lot of people are talking like, hey, wait a second, the Raptors are only like 3.5 games behind the play-in. We have these 2024 picks that are like late. They're late picks. They're from other teams. Are we have this Jakob Pertl elusive pick that San Antonio has, blah, blah, blah. But people are like wondering, like, hey, like maybe we should be going for the play-in this year. Maybe we should make a run at this because, we have these new players. We figured a lot out. We are still figuring more out, but like this team is clicking. Grady Dick is playing really well off the bench. Him and Kelly Olynyk seem to have like really good chemistry together now. Like, do you think the Raptors should be, everybody wants to win, of course, but do you think they should be winning and trying to have like a play-in spot just for the sake of like this team having experience, being competitive and being, relevant in some respects? Or do you feel like the future, building of this team we should focus more on that?
I like the way the team is playing right now. I was not happy with the way things were going down before the All-Star break. The way they lost in New Orleans, the way they lost in Houston, the
Yeah,
no-show
I was
at
pretty
home
upset
against San
about it.
Antonio, like that was not fun to see. And I was like, if you keep going like this, you're gonna develop some pretty bad habits. And so I think uh, to come out with the effort level, the intensity that they've shown, the cohesiveness that they've shown since the All Star break, I am much more in favor of that. And I'm happy to watch that play out, however it plays out. And if it gets them some wins, so be it. And I think uh, I'm I probably lean towards conveying the pick to San Antonio this year.
Mm.
Everything everyone says about the draft, this year's draft, is just nothing but bad news. And like Masai, when he spoke at the trade deadline, he was just like trying to hold himself back from completely, obliterating that draft class. Like his first instinct when he was asked about it, he says, "Oh, I can see Dan Tolzman being like, don't say it, don't say it." Like, okay,
You were
so
about to do a decent Messiah impression there, I have to say. You were starting one, and I feel like you low key bailed on it, but work on that, Vivek. I feel like you could pull off a really solid Messiah.
believe in yourself, believe in the city.
He's such a good person to impersonate. How have I not thought of this?
Maybe
He's
this is a
such
good.
he's such a character.
Yeah, maybe this is a good idea for Halloween. Just
Well,
I'm
it's an excuse to wear a really nice suit.
and maybe I'll just get like a bunch of his quotes,
Yeah.
like just all over me.
And then find like a
Believe in
BlackBerry.
yourself.
You
We will
gotta
win. We will win. We will win in Toronto.
Yeah, and then you have to have a BlackBerry, of course, because that's
Of
Masai's whole
course.
thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Of course.
Um,
So yeah, I think everything that everyone says about the draft like makes me feel like just get rid of the pick. It's fine. Like make sure you have the pick next year because next year projects to be a pretty strong draft. And
yeah, I don't
realistic.
know our pick situation for next season. Do we have our pick? Do you know? It's fine if you don't, because I'm springing that on you.
No. So the way it works is if the Raptors pick in the top 6 this year, they get to keep the pick.
Yeah.
And so by default, by keeping the pick this year, then they are potentially conceding next year's pick to San Antonio. Unless next year's pick also ends up being in the top 6. then that gets carried forward to 2026.
God, that's so convoluted.
Unless the Raptors pick in the top 6 again in 2026. And in which case the Spurs then just get 2 second-round picks. And they say enough of this.
Right. So essentially this pick is gone. Like the odds of getting this thing, the odds of getting this thing back feel slim.
Yeah, at some point in the next 3 years, right?
Right.
Because yeah, if you end up outside the top 6 this year, then it's going straight to San Antonio. And so as soon as it goes to San Antonio, automatically the implications going forward are gone, right? Like you've conveyed the pick.
Right.
Now you have your pick for next year, no matter what. And so I think that's an important thing where if you look at the teams that are ahead of the Raptors right now in the East, I don't think anyone would look at Boston, Cleveland, Milwaukee, New York, Miami, Philadelphia. That's the top 6 right now. I don't think anyone is looking at those top 6 teams saying, oh, the Raptors are going to catch them next year, right?
Right.
It's going to take a bit longer than that. And then you've still got, Indiana, who look pretty good. You've still got Orlando, who look pretty good and might who have the cap space
might
to
even
get
be better next year. Yeah.
So you're looking at 6 to 8 teams that are going to be difficult to catch in the East. Then you've got the West that is absolutely loaded. Like you've got the Lakers and the Warriors in 9th and 10th, right? And so you could fairly say that that's 10 teams that project to be better than the Raptors out of the West next year. You've still got a Memphis team that will be back with Ja Morant, and they'll have a high pick in this year's draft. So you can bet that they'll be moving up the standings. You've got a San Antonio team that now might be looking to make a move to get someone next to Wemby, and maybe they get a Trae Young, and all of a sudden they look really good, right? And so I think there's still anywhere between 15 to 20 teams that could be better than the Raptors next year. And so
I would love for Trae Young and Wemby to be on the same team. I just have to put that out there. I want it to happen. I'm sorry, Atlanta, because that sucks for Atlanta, but I want it to happen. Just the photo shoots alone. Because it's like the shortest NBA star with the tallest NBA star.
Yeah, and it's the perfect guy to make up for Trae Young's defense.
Yes, because he's long enough.
Yeah.
Literally, because he's long enough. I agree. Anyway.
And
yeah.
And so having a pick that high, you don't want to have, the second half of next season being like, oh my God, like we have to still find a way to be bad enough to make sure the pick, doesn't go to San Antonio.
Right.
So
you're saying get rid of this pick this year because we
don't
want to have to, because it's a bad draft. And then that way we don't have to worry about it next year. And then wherever we land next year is where we land.
Yeah.
And we're better off for that. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the only counter to that is if you somehow sneak into the top 4. If you sneak into the top 4 of this year's draft, then maybe there's a conversation to be had, right? Where
that changes things. Yeah.
Where a top 4 pick could be better than maybe like, the 12th or 13th pick next year.
Right.
But again, I think that's a situation where, if you go into the lottery with, say, the 8th best odds and you end up picking 8th, then I think you're perfectly fine with San Antonio having that pick. If you go into the lottery with the 8th best odds and you somehow end up in the top 4, then you're like, hey, okay, you know what? We got lucky.
Right. Yeah, it's so interesting how all of this can play out, because there's a part of me that's like, especially with Trae Young being out for a month and the Hawks potentially slipping in the stands, which would make...
Well, the funny thing is they're winning.
They're winning without him. Yeah, which is crazy. Oh my God,
like...
that's right. I forgot that they're winning right now.
Yeah.
So maybe they won't slip. Maybe they'll be in the Eastern Conference Finals. No kidding. But to me, I feel like it is really valuable for young teams to have playoff like experience, right? And I'm a big believer in not being a part of like a losing culture. I think like when you're a part of a losing culture for a really long time, it's hard to adjust. Um so I feel like the play in, even though I wouldn't expect to go anywhere, I just feel like a high stakes game with Scotty as, the firm leader of this team would be really valuable experience. And then going into next year, it's like, okay, how are we going to build? Because I don't see Masai building this team around the draft over the next like 2+ years. Not that we're going to sign a bunch of free agents necessarily, but I think he's just going to keep making these like strategic moves, like smaller moves with guys who have bigger promise. I feel like that's just his style and that's what he's going to continue to do. And he's going to try and, I don't know, figure it out. Because like I feel like if you're drafting this year, next year, and then Scotty's like 4 years older than these guys, then are they on the same timeline? Do you know what I'm
Yeah, I mean,
saying?
I think 4 years is okay. I don't think you're too worried. Or I think maybe, where it was with Pascal, where it's like 7+, then you start to get into
Right.
wondering if it's the right fit. But at the same time, we talk about how much we love seeing Halliburton and Siakam play together, and Halliburton,
That's the same age gap. Yeah.
is just a year older. So I think at the end of the day, if you're good enough, you don't care, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, like Kyle Lowry was what I think he was 7 years older than Siakam, right?
Mhm.
So
That's
you,
fair,
you,
that's
you,
fair.
you care about it when you care about it, but when you're good enough and you're winning, no one cares.
Right. That's very, very legit. Can I ask you other Raptors questions that were on our docket? Is that cool?
Yes, but very quickly,
Yes.
I will shamelessly plug my Raptors Substack that I've begun, because my last post was about whether or not the Raptors should look to keep this year's pick. And so,
Nice.
if you want all kind of the angles on everything that you need to consider, you can go check out my Substack. It is Raptors in 7. It's a weekly newsletter, hence the tie-in with 7. And obviously, 7 has so many great connections to the Raptors because of Kyle
Mhm.
Lowry, the greatest Raptor of all time.
Mhm.
Some memorable Game 7s. And so, yeah, be sure to check that out.
Amazing. I am gonna read that actually because I do want to have a bit greater grasp on this whole situation. Okay, two players I want to ask you about. I want to ask you about Chris Boucher. Why is Chris Boucher not getting minutes with this squad? I feel like this is kind of a big mystery amongst fans just watching these games. Like, where did Chris Boucher go?
Yeah, I think that one is. I feel bad for Chris because
Hmm.
I feel like, as someone who has consistently played hard and been a pro for this organization, if they knew he wasn't going to be a part of the rotation, they should have just looked to move him at the deadline.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think he's someone that can help some of these younger guys in terms of forming good habits. And I'm sure he's doing whatever he can off the court and in practices in terms of showing that right approach and mindset. But I do think there are things that he brings on the court as well. And now Darko might look at that and say, well, he's not, he doesn't fit the offensive system in terms of making those quick decisions and whatnot. But I think there is something to be said for his hustle and his ability to go get it off the offensive glass and just scramble on the floor defensively. And I think there should be moments for some of that, right? And I think Boucher has actually had historically some of his best games against Dallas. And so
Mhm.
when things
Mhm.
are kind of getting away from you in that third quarter, as they did, why not give him a look and see if he can give you a bit of a spark?
Mhm. Yeah, it just feels like it was kinda out of the blue because it wasn't like, "Oh, Chris Boucher's been struggling all season," like, blah, 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 like, none of those narratives, really existed around him. I mean, he was I would just say the same player he was last year. more or less, maybe slight declines, but nothing significant. So yeah, it just feels like a huge mystery to me why he's not getting any minutes. And then the other player I want to ask you about is Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown seems like he's struggling with this team. Do you think he just kind of low key doesn't care and doesn't want to be here? That's my little conspiracy theory. That's me putting on the conspiracy hat.
Yeah, I mean, I've been getting those vibes since, of those couple games that he played before the deadline too, right? And I think
yeah, because he kind of came thinking like, okay, I'm gonna get traded. I think we all thought he was gonna get traded, and then he didn't get traded. And then I think he kind of like at first was like, okay, I'm gonna be here. Started playing well, and then dipped again. Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you started coughing, but I finished my sentence, and then I was like, I didn't take an improv class for that. I'm sorry. Oh my God. But yeah, no, Bruce Brown, I mean, it's kind of been a little disappointing, I think, because you look at like the difference maker he was with Denver when they won, and then now it's like, oh, like I feel like Denver still needs him, but obviously,
yeah, Denver could probably use him. A championship contender could probably use him, and he's playing like, wow, I really wish I was on one of those teams.
I'm sure it's hard to go from winning a championship to like maybe in the play-in, maybe not. Like I'm sure that's a difficult swing, but also, I mean, he chose to leave. He did sign with a playoff contender. I will give him that. And he probably didn't think he would get traded. But it's just like, I don't know, man. It just sucks to see somebody on the floor who's like not totally motivated. And like I know him and Boucher are like different positions, so it doesn't make sense to swap them. But I don't know. It's just kind of a little unfortunate to me that we have this like fan favorite who we all love not getting any playing time. And then you have this guy who's like new and is supposed to be really good and just kind of seems like body language wise just seems a little unmotivated to be here, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, he seems like one of those role players that's saying, well, if I'm not going to be on a championship contender, then I want to do more than just play a role, And it's like, well, hey, I want to work on dribbling left today, and I want to work on this little floater today, and I want to work on this pull-up three today, and there's no real stakes on this team, so who cares?
Yeah. It's not great. But all that aside, we are looking good. And I remain hopeful for the rest of the season. With that being said, Vivek, it is time for a Hottie highlight of the week. And obviously, I've been saving this all episode long because it is the most obvious of all our Hottie highlights of the week, and that is the pizza party. Vivek, we got it. We got our pizza party. We got it.
Only had to get to the end of Feb, but we got there.
Hey man, it's a leap
for
year.
A 3-game win streak.
And then to me, the craziest thing is that like Darko said dinner. Like he said dinner, and then all the fans turned it into a pizza party because it just sounded like a really cute, dare I say, minor league thing to do.
Yeah.
And then after we won these 3 games, Darko said that they in fact declined the fancy dinner and have opted for a pizza party, which is incredible because I feel
Raptors
like
Twitter influence.
I feel like we did that. We made this pizza party happen.
Where's the Drake video?
Where's the Drake video?
Look around.
Open Gym had a reservation at like West Harbor or whatever one of those steak restaurants are. And then they were like, sorry, we're not going to make it. We're just having pizza somewhere. Where did they eat pizza? In the locker room? Where did they go? I don't even know. I don't even think they went to a place. I think they probably just ordered it, like delivery.
They might have.
And then what pizza did they eat? Do you know?
I do not know yet. I actually believe it might be happening tonight.
It's happening tonight. That makes
Yes,
sense.
possibly.
I mean,
And
like, I'm just like, I'm nervous for them. Like, are they ordering pizza?
do you think?
No one
Do you think?
sponsors this podcast, so I can say whatever I want about whatever brand of pizza
Do you think
until
they should
we do.
be? Uh, do you think Darko should set like a scale, and it's like, this is your first 3-game win streak, so you get pizza. If you want to move up,
If we win another 3 games in a row, you get north of Brooklyn? Like, is that
yeah.
what you're saying?
Is that
Wow.
where this needs to go now?
Or is it like pizza libretto and then north of Brooklyn? I feel like now we're really, you know. And then there's that
Yeah.
Maker's Pizza place, which I haven't been to actually.
Yeah.
What is the best pizza in
And
Toronto? I feel like that
if
that's still up for debate.
if you have a 3-game win streak that includes beating LeBron, then you get to have Blaze Pizza.
Okay. Oh, there's blondies? Or blondes? Blondies? There's a blondies pizza.
Oh no, I was saying Blaze because that's LeBron's pizza, right? Like,
oh, I didn't know that.
He has like
Does
a
that
stake in
exist
that.
here?
Yeah, it's like on, I want to say like Richmond and John.
Wow. What about like yeah, I mean, have you had Papa John's pizza, which is like Shaq's pizza? It's very
Right.
very meh.
So maybe if you have a 3-game win streak that includes beating one of Shaq's teams, like
If I were a smart business person, I would be saying I love and then like just the biggest pizza chains just for sponsorship, right? Like I would be like, no, I love pizza. I love Domino's pizza. I love like whatever, you know what I mean? But I'm not a smart business person, so that hasn't happened. But yeah, they opted for a pizza party, which I think is very hilarious. Very childlike, but also very endearing. Curious to see what pizza they're going to get. I feel like we're all going to have a lot of opinions about this pizza party. I don't think a pizza party is ever going to be dissected more than this one.
Yeah, like the open gym episode of the pizza party is going to do numbers.
It's
like,
the whole half hour.
Championship numbers.
There's nothing else in the episode. It's just, oh my God, that would be incredible. They should live stream it. You know, if they really knew what they were doing, they would live stream this pizza party. And they would have a sponsor. They would have a sponsor, and then Darko would be like, "I was just trying to buy dinner for everybody," and then it turns into massive thing. Yeah. But I'm really
some place is gonna end up naming, like, it's gonna be called like the Darko Slice.
Oh, they should.
Yeah,
they should. Oh my God, Vivek, what would the Darko Slice be?
So it definitely doesn't have any pineapple.
Yeah, he said no pineapple. We could do olives, like black olives.
Yeah, I think he's like old school, so it'd be like just pepperoni, olives. I don't know what else you got going on there, but yeah, I think he's pretty traditional about his pizza.
What, like a topping combination I love that I think would make sense as the Darko pizza is black olives, bacon, not like the like actual like pieces, like real pieces of bacon, not the random crunchy stuff. Real pieces of bacon and mushrooms, and then like a little bit of like chili flakes or a bit of chili, or just like a touch of chili oil. I feel like that combination called the Darko pizza would actually be very good. And you know, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Serbian pizza is. I'm sure they have a pizza, like a type of pizza that's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know what that is. By the way,
we might have to do some research on this.
Have you seen footage of games being played in Serbia? That's like outdoors and like the smoke and the lights. Oh my God, it looks so cool. I think they were talking about the Warriors doing an exhibition game out there. I don't know if it's confirmed, but there was talk of that happening in honor of their assistant coach that passed away, Decky. But yeah, anyway, I need like, oh, it's a boost for Serbian tourism. I will say
Yeah.
that.
No, I mean, the culture there when it comes to sports is just insane. Like, I'm a big soccer fan, so it's like when you see these teams
Mm.
like Red Star Belgrade or whoever playing, like, it is intense.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
yeah, you do not, want to, you definitely want to, make some friends before you go probably and make sure you're as safe as can be if you're attending one of these things.
Yes,
um,
yes. I like whenever I see international, like, sporting events, like, I always think like, "Oh, those look really, really cool," but then I'm low key like, "I don't see any women in this crowd." Like, I don't think there's any women in attendance at
well,
some of these events.
it's funny you say that. Do you watch Hot Ones?
Yes.
So there was an episode that Matt Damon was on, and I believe his wife is Argentinian.
Mhm.
And so they decided to like go back to her home and visit one time. And one of the things that Matt Damon really wanted to do was go to an Argentinian soccer match.
Mhm.
And so he goes to his father in law and is like, hey, can we go to this local match that's here? And obviously Matt Damon is such a great storyteller, and he's just like, father-in-law looks at me, he's like, okay, we go, but no women and children. Like
Yeah,
this is serious business.
yeah.
Like there is too much at stake. Lives might be lost. Like we got to
It's
protect the women
that
and children.
intense. Yeah.
Like,
That's so crazy. That makes me sad, because, like, I wanna go, and
right, of
I'm
course.
sure they wanna go.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I'm sure there are women and children that go, but
I don't know. I mean, I
yeah,
don't know, like, if you look at that footage, it's like, or like other I don't know. It depends on the country, I think, but
yeah,
some
yeah.
of
No,
these
I was talking
countries,
about Argentina, Brazil.
yeah,
Like obviously they like
they have
you know,
women that go, yeah, yeah, but
yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
it looks fun. I wanna go to a basketball game in Serbia, I want to experience this. Someone let me know if it's, safe for a single woman to go. Do I maybe have to put a fake wedding ring on or something? Uh, just to be left alone. If it's like that or not, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But anyway, we should wrap it up there because we're getting carried away. Thank you, Vivek, for joining me. For those listening, let us know what you're up to again and where they can find you on the internet.
Yeah, you can find my general NBA work on Sportsnet. You can find my Raptors work at my Substack now, Raptors in 7. It's pinned to my profile. So my Twitter profile is at Vivek M. Jacob. So you can find me on there and go check it out. And what else do I have going on? I'm doing cricket work for Cricket Canada. So
Yeah.
if you're a cricket fan, you can go check that out. And besides that, thanks so much for having me on, Cathryn. This was a blast.
Thank you, Vivek. Always enjoy having you on. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening, and we will catch you next time. Bye.